Welcome, everyone. We are live today. We're streaming this live to LinkedIn, to YouTube, and we will also turn today's episode, like all of them, into a podcast episode. So, welcome to you, whatever platform you're joining us from today. Today's topic is hybrid and secure work experience. So as we've obviously seen that the world has shifted to this digital hybrid work where we more often us now work from home. One of the key topics around this is how do we make this productive and how do we make this secure? And to discuss this today, I am super excited to say that I am joined by two experts, by Todd Lieb, who is the Director for Strategy and Programs at Dell Technologies. Hi, Todd.
Hey, Bernard, how are you?
Yeah, very good. Good to have you. And we have Spencer Pitts, who is the Chief Technologist for Digital Workspace in EMEA for VMware. So, hi, Spencer.
Hi, hi Bernard, and hi everyone. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, no, I'm really looking forward to today's discussion. So maybe, Todd, you can give anyone listening a little bit more background about what you sell, what you do, and a little insight about Dell Technologies, should anyone not know who you work for.
Yeah, sure. So let's start with Dell Technologies. So Dell Technologies, well, I guess Dell was founded by Michael Dell back in the mid-'80s. It's gone through an evolution of kind of going from laptops and desktops where he started to a full technology business. So Dell Technologies includes brands like VMware and Dell and a company called EMC, which was a data center focused company, which Dell merged with or acquired about 4 years ago. So we're about a $95 billion business. We're the largest technology company in the world. My role is that I sit within a group of, I work with a group of customers, basically our largest 125 customers scattered around the world. And I work with those customers to do IT strategy and digital workplace strategy. So thanks for having me, Bernard. I'm looking forward to it.
Very good. Yeah, no, it's nice to have you. How about you, Spencer?
Yep, so I work for VMware. So those that don't know VMware, it's been around for about 25 plus years. So we're the leader originally. We started off in data center virtualization and one of the leading cloud management and cloud computing companies in the world, and part of the Dell Technologies family with Todd. And specifically, I'm in what they call the digital workspace team. So going out to customers, similar role in to Todd, really, going out there, speaking to customers around strategy, what's new in the industry, how VMware can help them, and kind of speaking all things end user computing. And that's where I used to be before I joined VMware. I actually worked for some banks and other vendors. And pretty much, if you cut me in half, Bernard, I'd have end user computing all the way through me. So they say.
Very good. Where are you joining us from, Todd, today?
So I'm based in Boston, so east coast of the U.S. I guess about 5 hours behind you at this point. We're just getting into our day.
Yes, very good. So I'm just north of London, and Spencer, you're in the UK as well.
Yeah, if you haven't guessed by my accent, I'm sitting in the lovely just north of Brighton. If anybody knows where that is, it's south coast of UK, just in a lovely part of the world. So and the sun's come out just for this. So yeah,
very good. I'm just having a little look through the stream. As always, everyone is very welcome to join in, ask questions. This makes these sessions a lot more interesting. Say hello, let us know where you are from, so it gives us a feel for who is on today. Let me just see. We've got Tim here joining from New York, saying hello. Zakir saying hello to everyone. We've got Zara from Azerbaijan joining, and we have got Gemons from the Dominican Republic of Congo. We've got a few people from the UK. Vicky saying hello from London here. A few people from India. Fortune saying hello from the US. We've got someone from Diaz from Indonesia. It's really nice for everyone to join us. As I said, keep this going. I will pull up some interesting questions when they come up, and you can ask any questions at any point you want. So today we talk about hybrid work. So the world has obviously changed. We've seen the shift towards this digital and hybrid model of work. Todd, what do you see happening in the world of work, and what do you see as some of the key challenges in this space?
Yeah, I think the best way that I can say it, and Spencer, I'm sure you'll be able to add in here, is the idea that last year when COVID was taking off, there was this idea of do it fast. So as an example, we had a customer that ordered in the course of about 24 hours, 175,000 keyboards, followed by 175,000 mice. So that was at the time something like 5% of the world's mice available and keyboards available in the entire supply chain. So that was kind of the do it fast mentality, where we just had to get people enabled and kind of get home offices set up. I think that the movement now is more to do it right. So customers are now looking back and saying, okay, how do I take apart the experience of working not just from home, but wherever we are, because we're going to start coming back to the office or other sites, let's say work from site, over time. And so we're starting to see changes in how customers are taking apart that experience and then working on the individual pieces. So that do it fast, to do it right is one of the biggest things that's happening right now and will continue to happen.
Yeah, I completely agree. And yeah, the shortage of everything. I remember in the beginning when you couldn't get anything. I tried to upgrade my webcam and there was literally nothing available. And yeah, how about you, Spencer? What are you seeing, and what do you see as some of the challenges?
Yeah, so very similar to Todd in one sense, but some other perspectives there. And in the early days, we had a similar. It's not do it fast, do it right. It's very much around respond, adapt, and then accelerate. And accelerate meaning how do we do things differently? But yeah, in that early phase, a lot of, well, let's just call it, first of all, a lot of IT people and a lot of businesses did miracles to get people up and running. I think that's one of the main things I would say. And there's a lot of, people should think of, be proud of what they did in those early days. But we do sometimes focus on the home worker, right? Which is obviously because people used to be in a physical workplace and then they had to go home. But we also saw a lot of things around maybe industries having to adapt, maybe retail industries where people were in shops that couldn't be in shops, but suddenly transitioned to online. And now you need delivery drivers or you need logistics people. So we actually saw some of that happen as well. And of course, when you do things like that, their work modes change. So the way that they need to get their job done and the technology that supports it has to go through a bit of a change. But similar to Todd, I've got some horror stories and some really good stories as well about some of those early weeks. And I'm sure we won't forget those anytime soon.
No. So how has the transition been in your own organization in VMware? Were you ready for all of this, and what has the organization done well and maybe not so well to transition into this hybrid workspace environment?
So I mean, there's two ways of looking at it. VMware as a whole. It's got a lot of types of functions in there. Myself, I'm probably like Todd. I used to travel around a lot, so for me, I don't miss some of that, although I do miss it depending on what day it is of the week at the moment. But at the same time, I was quite used to not having to work from a particular location. So actually the way that VMware looks after, and I'm sure it's because we're part of the Dell Technologies family as well, and Todd's probably going to keep me honest here, we had a very similar outlook about how we enable people. So we've been doing that for a while. And there's a couple of reasons for that. The technology, and I'm sure we, after this, if people want to have a look, there's some great technology that underpins it that we sell to our customers as well. But it's in terms of things like HR and some of the work practices and some of those things. So actually we were technologically quite well set up, I would say. So in terms of the IT side, apart from some things like shipping monitors home and some extra stuff like Todd said, we were pretty much ready to go. I know that sounds a little bit, hindsight, but yeah, we were quite advanced, and technology wasn't a blocker for sure.
Good.
Days.
Todd, what was your experience?
Yeah, so within Dell Technologies overall, we moved about 130,000 people to a work from home model in a 2-week period. Michael and the executive leadership team took a very early and very conservative, may not be the right word, but we really got very careful very early. And so Jen Felch is our chief chief digital officer, but she's essentially the CIO. I think she would say it's better to be lucky than good. We were a little bit lucky. We had implemented SD-WAN capabilities. We had deployed VPNs that could scale. So in general, it wasn't easy, but we moved fast and we moved ahead of most of the customers that we were talking with. Most customers weren't prepared for this in our experience. And I think what's interesting is because the technology worked fast, we got into other things more quickly, or what we're working on now, I guess I should say, Bernard, is collaboration. And I think that the idea of connecting and having the collaboration tools and having them deployed well has really been where our focus is. Because once the technology is working, it's like, okay, now what do you do with it? And that's where I see a lot of the activity now.
Very good, yeah. And I feel the same. I feel that I could transition into this new world really well, and I don't miss many of the things that we used to do. I think we talked about this the other day. Spend too much time in airport lounges. Just reminded me last time we spoke, you talked about a chicken costume as well, right?
Yeah. All right. I had a feeling that was going to come up, Bernard, so I have to bring that up. So here's my my thinking about the new world, right? Is that in terms of communication, it's like 15% of what somebody takes in is what they hear, right? And all of a sudden we're in this mode where you're hearing a lot of things. So what I have been doing is just trying to have fun and make sure that I'm authentic. So if I can't be with somebody, I want them to see what I'm like just in my normal life. So the way that I am on work is the way that I am at home. So that's a long preamble because I'm going to show you this picture, and I don't want people to drop from the stream because they think I'm insane. But this is me. Oh, hold on. This is me. And this is actually, that's me in a full chicken costume. There you go. That's focused.
I love it.
And that's actually before a customer meeting. So we had this event where we were doing a cooking demonstration with a celebrity chef, and my camera's out of focus now. Sorry. And so I was asked to do like the Dell presentation before the celebrity chef comes on. So I was like, well, we're going to be cooking chicken. I'm just going to do the whole event in a chicken costume. And so it's just fun. It's like we spend so much time on these video cameras and in front of our screens that at times I just try to break up the monotony. And I see that happening across everyone that I talk to. Kids are walking into offices, dogs are barking, and people just kind of, it's the way life is now. So anyways, I had to give that preamble on the chicken costume, but you're going to make me show it.
Very good. And for me, I think it makes it all a bit more real, and I love this. I think this is why people engage with these live sessions as well, because it feels real, and that life is going on behind me. I've got my 3 children doing homeschooling from somewhere in the house. Okay, let me just have a quick look who is on. We've got Dr. Vinta from India. We've got Jonathan from Ireland joining, Lawrence from New Jersey. We've got Matteo from Belgium, and Max from Northern Germany. We've got Valdier from Brazil. So it's a truly global webcast and live stream again. We've got Mustafa from Istanbul in Turkey. This reminds me, this is the one thing I'm missing, seeing different places. And I don't miss the travel for work. I just miss going to different places, going on holiday, meeting people.
Yeah. Hey, Bernard, there was a question that came in from, I think it's Dr. Malcolm Roberts. He was asking about basically getting rid of cables and plugs and sockets and what's happening there. And I would say that, CES, the big consumer electronics show, occurred here in the middle of January. There is a ton of effort there. So all the Bluetooth connectivity, all getting rid of that, but going beyond connections and even into charging and everything else. So we're doing a ton of work around that, and you'll see more of it come out, especially with all the need to keep the home offices as clear and clean as possible. So just figured I'd answer that question, Bernard.
Yeah, and there was another question around the role of robots when it comes to the future of work. So maybe you can answer this more broadly, Scott, Todd, and if I ask you, what do you see? What role does technology play in making us work productively from home, and what are some of the developments you are seeing on the horizon that will make this better?
Yeah, so the question about robots is a good one, and I'm just going to come back to collaboration, Bernard, and I'm sure Spencer has thoughts on this as well. But the biggest change I think for most people was the human interaction being changed. So technology will continue to evolve to improve that interaction, and more importantly, the collaboration. So whether it's virtual reality and allowing people to feel like they're in the room with each other, to more things that will move sensory kinds of experiences versus just audio and video like we have now. The robotic stuff I think will continue in AI in terms of helping to improve everything from the connectivity to that interaction. But I think the focus is really on collaboration and people connecting. The technology can enable that and improve that over time because people know how to work. It's a matter of how do they work together in this new world.
I agree. Spencer?
Yeah, so to Todd's point around the collaboration here, right? I think we're trying to replace that in-person thing. I mean, this is lovely what you're doing here, and we're all online together, but I think people fundamentally miss that, person-to-person interaction. So anything we can do to kind of replace that, but I don't think we ever will, right? So we're getting better, and there's a lot of tools that have come out recently. Even things like whiteboarding's really come on. I used to do a lot of that in front of customers. I miss my flip chart pens that I used to bring around with me. So things like that to replace, to Todd's point, the collaboration side. But actually, it's also, and then we do a lot around AR as well, and VR, definitely around that side, trying to make things like office meetings more immersive. We were trialing some stuff internally in VMware to make I say in person, but our company meetings where you can, if you have a AR, VR headset, you can connect there and kind of look around and see virtually people. So there's some things there, but it's not quite the same, right? So I think what we're also thinking here is at some point we may go back to a physical location. Now, whether that's full-time or not depends on your job function, and there's a lot of debate around this hybrid subject, but I think the role of that workplace is going to change, and therefore you're going to get this kind of, I guess, balance, right? Those in-person things where you need to go and see people, catch up with them, the water cooler moments, as some people used to frame them, the kind of information you got from people just because you happen to bump into them, they happen to be in the same workplace at the same time. That's the thing that I don't think we'll ever replace. However, we can get people up and running a lot better at home, make them more productive. And I guess the key to that, though, is making sure that we understand if they are or have everything they need to get their jobs done. So we've definitely seen a lot of advances ourselves, understanding things like employee experience. Are people actually able to do what they need to do? Are their applications working correctly? Is their device able to be logged onto? And all the kind of things that, if you think about it, when we was in the office, you could just walk to somebody and go, okay, IT could go and speak to somebody on whatever floor and fix the problem. And it's not quite the same when everybody's dispersed. And a lot of these challenges have been the same for, like I said, frontline service workers for a while. So I think you're going to start to see that a lot of the, enhancements to what you can get done outside, but some of those in-person moments, I think, we're going to see them change, but we're going to see them a lot more productive for the time you're in. So rather than me, for instance, a little story here, but where we are before, and I haven't been there for about 1.5 years now, limited car parking spaces, right? It's a bit of a pain to get in there. And there was almost like this time window that you knew if you missed it, you'd not get a car parking space. Well, if everybody's going to come to the office like that, you kind of need to think about, do we need to do something smarter around booking a car parking, booking of meeting rooms, that kind of stuff. So I think you're going to see that workplace evolve with a lot more kind of intelligence and people looking for that building to be a lot more smarter and enhancing the kind of remote at-home experience as well, or frontline.
Absolutely. And for me, you're absolutely right. It's very hard to replicate this human-to-human experience. But I feel over the last 12 months, I've had better interaction with many more people than ever before, because you now have this ability to switch on Zoom or some digital platforms, and you meet people all over the world so effortlessly that wasn't possible before. and I think VR has definitely some promise, but we need to get there. I just found Hamadula's questions here: in the hybrid era, what's the role of robots, which is interesting. So in terms of hardware, do you see anything on the horizon that is interesting? I remember looking being part of CES digitally this year, the Consumer Electronics Show. Samsung introduced an interesting set of robots that would not only be this platform that would basically bring you a screen to talk to, but they would also do your dishes in the background and prepare your meal. So what's the role of robots, but more widely, what hardware do you see that will make a difference for hybrid work?
Spencer, you want to jump in? Yeah, go ahead. You start, Spencer. I'll add on.
I'll be honest with you, from a hardware perspective, there's a geek part of me that will pretty much buy anything like that. So as soon as that gets released, I'll have one of those. But until then, I have children, so they'll probably work for the time being. But from our perspective, from VMware, I mean, hardware is one thing for sure, but I think a lot of that robotic, if you want, Todd sort of touched on this AI and ML, I think that's where the development's going to be for us. So anything that can, help you in your day-to-day life to get what you need to get done better, more efficiently, and especially from a work perspective, I think you're going to see a lot more increase in that, that. But at the same time, I think us as people need to, and there's going to be a bit of a privacy thing that I think is going to come up here as well, is about how much information you're willing to give up in return for the reciprocal information back to you, right? So if you want something to help you and be more, I don't know, maybe it says you haven't seen your mum for a while or whatever it might be. Actually, I haven't seen her for a very long time, given situation. But, things like that where it's going to suggest you, oh, why don't you do this? Or did you know somebody else? We're going to have to give up more information. And I think there will be a bit of a balance there around, how much we give and take in order to get useful information back. So not really the hardware aspect, but I do think we're going to see a lot more advances there in terms of the, how digital assistants and virtual me's, if you want, are going to enhance our lives going forward.
Anything to add, Todd?
Yeah, I think I like what Spencer's saying. And I guess I would add on that I think there's a difference between what the consumers will do and how quickly, and then when businesses will follow. Erica made a comment earlier, I was just reading on the side, Bernard, she was saying, following the gaming industry. And I think that's actually a good analogy. The gaming industry tends to be forward, right? They're bringing AR, VR in ahead of the market or in the front edge of the market. They're building environments and worlds that are immersive. And so I think we'll see all of that bleed into the business context, and it'll come out of those consumer leading capabilities. So will I have a Samsung robot in my house to help me with work? Maybe not for a little while, but will I have one, as Spencer said, when my kids are acting up and I need to have somebody do the dishes? Maybe. I think that's a big difference. I mean, businesses are still trying to adjust and finish up a lot of the, respond to the changes that occurred. And one of the big events that's occurring right now is the turn of the year. So we had a lot of customers last year that were pulling forward end user compute budgets from the fall and early winter, say third and fourth quarters, to just deal with the spend that they needed to make in the spring. So those budgets were kind of, used. Now we've turned the corner and there's this new focus on, all right, what's the spend going to be now? How's my network? When my kids get on Zoom for school, do I all of a sudden lose all of my ability to work? And stuff like that is going on still. And I think that's where the focus will be. And then we'll start to see those new technologies, robots, AI, ML, immersive worlds, et cetera, come into the business world. Does that make sense, Bernard?
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah.
Bernard, you come from a part of the UK where they are trialing robots, I seem to believe. I think I might have walked past one of them before. It's delivering pizzas and other such like. So
I use them almost daily. because we don't go shopping, so we have a big shop delivered once a week, but in between, and we tend to run out of fruit and fresh things, and we have a robot that delivers grocery, that deliver takeaways, and this is on speed dial. I have a little app, and they are very busy busy in this neighborhood.
Wow.
Maybe, do you need some ML to tell you when it's time not to order so much? Is there like you're ordering too much pizza ML engine that's advising you, Bernard? Part of the
Prevention engine.
Not yet. There was an interesting comment here saying the future of work will be 80% work from home. How do you see that? Because I think we're still in this world where nobody knows what we will get back to. Do you envisage people staying at home? Do you think that organizations will give their employees complete flexibility? Do we see people going back to the office 2-3 days a week and working from home the other? And what do you see as some of the challenges? So what do you see, Spencer?
So I think, and to my point earlier around there's different functions. And one of the analogies is a logical extrapolation, so bear with me, but I kind of say, look, you can work from anywhere within reason, but if you're a nuclear missile operator, I kind of don't want you to be launching the missile on a bring your own device at home. Sort of want you to be making that decision inside the submarine. You know what I mean? So, and the reason I bring that up, I joke a little bit here. So, but not every job function can do that, right? So, I think we need to just balance it with what the needs of the business are as well. But I do think now there's a change, and the cat's out the bag, as we like to say here. And I think a lot of businesses have been traditionally wedded to that concept of people coming to a physical workplace, which is steeped in history around how we kind of gauged output, if you want, or measured people based on time activities. I don't know about Todd, and you're obviously working, you've got your own business there, Bernard, and doing things like this, but I'm actually kind of right now contracted from an hourly perspective and X amount of hours per week. Now, in the cold light of day, does that make sense now? Right? So I think there's a lot of people trying to think about how do we actually sort of think productivity, because productivity, if you think it all the way back, was I make X amount of things per hour. Now, in our line of work, when you're productivity workers, which kind of sounds ironic when you say it like that, but how do you judge your output? So I think there's going to have to be some sea changes there about how we judge what you're making, what you're producing, and maybe it's a time to then change hourly. Now, what's that got to do with working from home, you might ask? Well, traditional organizations have always been, you come in, your manager sees you at the desk. Used to be, I don't know if Todd's managers are like that. I'm sure they're not these days and more progressive, right? But there are still some that used to think in that way, that if you're not in the office, and it led to that whole culture of presenteeism. That's words done the rounds recently as well. But people staying later at evenings to try and make it look like they were doing more for the company. So I think there's been big changes there. But when you do that, then you need to think about, okay, contracts, how we look after people. What's the role of the manager now? Are they more player coaches rather than people overseeing to make sure you're doing your 37.5 hours a week or whatever it may be? So I think there's some things there from a business perspective that's definitely changed that we need to consider.
Absolutely. Anything to add, Todd? What do you think will happen? Will we go back a few days? Will we work from home overall? Will this apply to everyone? What are some of the challenges?
Yeah, so I'll answer that by describing first what, within Dell Technologies, two things have happened which have really changed our outlook, I think. So backing up, we'd always been a work from home type of organization, or work from anywhere, let's just say it that way. And then our CFO, Tom Sweet, has talked about, publicly, that we saw productivity maintain or increase even when the change occurred. And that was a big concern, right? It's like, well, if everybody goes to work from home, is our productivity as an organization going to go down? It actually increased and improved. And then secondly, there's a tremendous cost associated with both travel as well as the real estate that's held or leased for that. So you have this productivity increased and real estate costs are going to go down, and we're reevaluating our real estate and what do we really need? Where do we need offices? What I've been hearing, Bernard, is this idea of 3-2-2. So 3 days in the office, 2 at home, and then 2 on the weekend. And I'm not sure that that'll go that far. I think to Spencer's point, it depends on the role, the knowledge worker versus somebody in retail, as an example. But I think we're definitely going to see a blend. I don't think everybody's just going to be at home all the time, and we're certainly not going back to the office. I think that 60% in the at home actually is probably about where we'll end up, and that'll be around collaboration. That'll be around working together on projects to move them forward, as opposed to day-to-day things. Like, I'm not going to go in there and just work on my email or build a presentation. I'll certainly do that from my home office. That's my thought.
Yeah, no, this is an interesting point. I think sometimes it's very easy to look at it from your own perspective and the technology world that we operate in, and the business, the senior level business world that we operate in, where people tend to have comfortable setups at home, and where they do knowledge work that can be done from anywhere. I've now been working from home for 15 years, so there was no change for me. But I think the point you're making is that this doesn't apply to everyone. You have some people that have to go to work, and what do you see are the key challenges around this? I guess there are challenges around culture, because there's a danger that you almost create two different systems, one for the people that can work from home and are the ones that go into the office, and the dangers that you could have different cultures for those. And I think technologically there's a challenge as well. How do you replicate the experience people have at home when they then go into work? So what are your views on this, Spencer?
So a good one recently that I heard from a retail customer is actually they're seeing this as an opportunity to make because if you think about in retail, you've got back office staff that kind of run operations and smooth running of these systems, and then you have people maybe in the shop, logistics, etc. So they're looking, to Todd's point, to rationalize some of their real estate, but then maybe open up some of the retail offices to be drop-in centers. And one of the benefits they're seeing there is actually you can get some of the frontline people. Well, at the moment, obviously, with social and everything that's going on, but they're looking at that as a chance to kind of get some of their colleagues to work closely together, have rooms where you can come in and see what's going on the front line in retail establishments to understand where the problems are. So actually, some of them are seeing this as a bit of an opportunity, but you're right. It could be seen that there's, we're lucky. We've got hopefully nice offices. I've blanked out my one behind me, but it's okay. But a lot, especially if you're young and just coming into work, you think about that side of things. A lot of people, I used to go to London quite a bit and quite like London. I quite like London after I'd done my work. There was a lot of places for me to while a lot of time away, right? And but that's part of the getting to know, networking and everything that goes with it. A lot of people go to big metropolitan cities to work, to have social life as well. So there is another aspect that sometimes we forget about. And we're all of a certain age. I'm making no assumptions here, but we need to think about different demographics as well. So you're right. It's definitely something we need to think about. But from a technological perspective, well, at least we can level the playing ground there and make sure that everybody can do what they need to do wherever they are. But some of those cultural aspects, I think we're still working through. But I think there are some, opportunities to change that as well.
So today's topic is hybrid work experience, but also secure work experience. Yeah. And I guess this is a topic I'd like to talk about in a bit more detail, because security has been a major challenge for organizations when they suddenly had to make the shift to home working and people accessing corporate systems with their own devices, being distracted by homeschooling and general stress that makes them much more vulnerable to cyber attacks. So what do you see as some of the challenges around security? And I'm just pulling in a question here from Sohila as well, saying, okay, can you explain how do we make our networks secure when we work from home? So let's come back to that. But what do you see as some of the key challenges when it comes to security? Todd, do you want to take this first?
Yeah, sure. I'll start. And when you asked the question before about the challenges, this is the challenge I was going to bring up. So this is perfect segue. So what we saw was at the time when the change occurred last spring, there was 3 kind of twists to the story, if you will, that happened all at once. Number one is the surface of attack exploded. So at Dell, we went from maybe 1,000 offices and manufacturing plants, distribution centers, et cetera, to 130,000. So that surface of attack changed. Number two is the frequency of attacks increased. So in the US, there's a group called the FBI, kind of an internal police, if you will, national level police. And they were recording increases of 400%. I've seen 4,000%, increases. So everybody moves to home. The bad guys increase the frequency and the sophistication of the attacks. So surface of attack increases, the number increase. And then there were studies that have been done around insider threats. So when I have my workplace, if you will, inside a building, that's corporate building, it's harder, or it's not as easy for an insider or some actor to get to those corporate assets. But now when the corporate network goes to your home and you have your laptop in your home office, it changes the rules. And plus there was a lot of stress, a lot of concerns that people had that would cause them to maybe do something that they wouldn't normally. So what's changed then is that endpoint has really evolved into the entrance into the corporate network, which changes all the rules as to how you protect then inside. So, this idea of we're going to be able to keep the bad guys out, that's gone. We're going to be able to detect the bad guys once they're in. Yes, there's a lot of investment there, but that's also really challenging. And in most cases, when we see attacks, the stay a months, like the number of months they've been in the network is somewhere between 6 and 9. So it's happening all the time. So the focus on endpoint security is in my opinion, the biggest challenge as customers head forward. And then, the solution here is to make that security intrinsic. So the question about the network, it's not about just locking down the network. It's about making that network intrinsically secure along with the endpoint, along with whatever that endpoint is connecting to. And Spencer, I know we do a lot of work within VMware around intrinsic security, but Bernard, those are just a couple of thoughts, right? Those 3 changes, and then this idea that people are coming in. So what are we doing about it?
Very good. So, Spencer, how have you seen the cyber threats evolving over the last 12 months, and what do you think organizations can do to make it safer and secure their networks and secure their data and everything else?
Well, there's a couple of strands to that, and one of them I will just pick up on the endpoint security. So, look, before everything that happened, to Todd's point, you were all in an office and you trusted the office, right? And typically there was an enterprise network that was in the office. And so all of these things are kind of related. And people used to leave the office like we used to work, but a lot of the time you was doing some of your work from there. So that's the big change. I mean, a lot of people were able to do email, look at presentations and other kind of business applications as well. What's happened now then, a lot of the time though, was the fact that it's now not just a corporate-owned device. That's the other thing we need to kind of, the difference here is a lot of corporate organizations would say, when you join on day one, here's a device, hopefully one of the ones that we may make in this family here, but you get a device, it's locked down to some degree, and that's kind of how we've done it for a while, and we trust the fact that it's locked down, it's kind of owned by the organization. We take it outside, and it's still kind of locked down. Not everybody had the option of having a corporate device. So some people have people coming in from bring your own devices. Now that's got a couple of challenges, because the thing about bring your own is there's a personal element of data. So when we think security, we focus on the cyber threats, which is important, right? That is one of the big things we should consider, but it's also privacy. Because now if I'm coming in from a bring your own device, where is the barrier between what I do at home from my personal perspective versus what we do at work? And I think in the past, what we tended to do is say, well, you can't look at internet sites or do shopping. Or, there were rules about that, but it's harder to do when, if you think about it, you were in the office, so all of your traffic came out. A lot of people used to go to the office because the internet connection was better in the office. I'm sure some people used to know those days where you could get 100 meg or whatever it was. Thankfully now a lot of the internet is a lot better, but there's still issues. Not everybody is fortunate to have proper high-speed broadband. But I think the main point that a lot of customers are dealing with right now is my traditional models don't work in the same way. So where am I going with this? Well, you need a different model, right? So if anybody's heard of zero trust, that is the thing that a lot of people now are considering. And zero trust comes from just because I happen to be in the building, I still don't trust you. You need to prove to me. So start off from no trust. So zero trust almost sounds like you're never going to trust anybody, but it's more of a starting point. So the point here is assume everybody is bad, or we don't trust them. It's probably a better explanation, and get them to somehow prove that they are trustworthy. And the context is important there. So I know I'm me, but I need to prove I'm me because somebody else could pretend to be me. So that's one area. The device I'm coming in from, is that a trusted device, as in, is it corporately managed, or is it, like I said, a bring your own device? Maybe there's things we want to do to say, well, if you are one of those, you might get prompted for some extra security. And then I think one of the questions came up around networking. So what about networking? Are you coming in maybe for a VPN? So by the way, I sometimes call VPNs virtually pointless now. That's my new acronym for that, right? So in the new world, where apps are sitting in the cloud, potentially you don't need to traverse and go back in when you could connect directly to an internet resource. So I think there's a couple of things here, but ultimately you kind of need to relook at the security model and some of those old ones that we had where you effectively were basing out from that central place and then adding on solutions. You need a bit of a rethink. And that's one of the big things that we're discussing with customers right now. There's a lot of tool sets around it, but fundamentally some of the methodologies need to change that.
Yeah, I completely agree. And a good point here by EHUB saying security comes first, security everywhere, and security by design, which I think sums it up quite nicely. So overall then, what do you see as some of the wider challenges of making this hybrid work experience work in the future? So what would you say, Spencer, are some of the key considerations that companies need to make? What are some of your top tips, or even some best practice examples of getting this right?
Yeah, so I think the examples of customers where, say, line of business, HR, IT, the security teams come together, there's still a lot of customers we went to that separate functions siloed and nobody could really make a decision and those teams weren't coming together. So I think, looking forward, there was an opportunity here to, co-steering committees, making sure certain key stakeholders are on when decisions get made. IT can't do this alone now. Some of the things that we talked about before means that it's not an IT only decision. So, getting customers and companies to reconsider how they make decisions and be a lot more collaborative, I think that's definitely one of them. And like I said, some of those HR, you think about it now that everybody is at home, actually that widens your talent pool, recruitment, right? So now you can tap into people all around the world. So actually to make it work, it's a net positive to a lot of businesses. Why get wedded to an office when now you can go and recruit people, talented, whatever age, right, wherever they are in the world now. So I think that's a real opportunity as well, that you can start to think about how you keep, retain, recruit people as well. But some of the best examples are where people come together and make this stuff work.
Todd, what's your view on some of the key challenges, best practices, top tips of making the hybrid work experience actually happen?
Yeah, so I just was scribbling down a couple of notes as Spencer was talking. I'll take Spencer's last point actually and flip it first. So this idea of being able to recruit from anywhere is very, very powerful. We're seeing that especially in the IT industry because getting talent was really challenged. But if you flip that to the other side, the trend of allowing employees to live anywhere, right? Somebody that already works for you to be wherever they want, right? Is allowing really big changes in the quality of life, quality of living that individuals or employees, team members have. So I no longer need to live near an office. I can live wherever it is that's convenient, whether it's family or environment, whatever it is. So that's definitely a change, and companies are actively considering that. Then a couple other thoughts. One is there's a lot of attention and focus right now around personas, this concept of what are the types of people and types of needs that those individuals have as they come in and use my work experience. So for example, when the original COVID and everything was rolling out, we had two groups that were really interesting to figure out. One was animators within some of the major movie companies around the world. So they had this idea of, hey, I'm using really powerful systems inside an office to design and create animations and animated movies. How do I take that and move it home? It's a very different need. And then the second was around the investment banks and the traders. So in a trading floor, you have high bandwidth, low latency, many screens, right? The seconds, milliseconds count literally from a financial point of view. So how do you move that home? And if somebody's kid gets on Zoom, do they all of a sudden have latency that stops a trade, right? That's a whole different kind of conversation. So this idea of personas and getting very specific around the needs of individuals and types of jobs is moving. So live anywhere, the idea of personas. And then the third is I know, and the customers I talk with are reevaluating why people come to the office in the first place. So it used to be you went to the office because that's what you did. But if that's not the case anymore, then the redesign of the office location or office space, get rid of places where people sit and expand the number of conference rooms and, clusters where people can just get together and collaborate and share ideas. Those kinds of things are absolutely playing out right now, especially as companies reevaluate their real estate needs. So those are just a couple of thoughts that I hear over and over again, Bernard.
Very good. Fascinating and very good tips. Thank you there, both of you. Let's take a look into the future. And I'm interested to hear what you see in terms of how this hybrid work experience will work out, what you see in terms of technology and security and how this will all evolve. So how do you see the next few years playing out, Spencer?
So the security space is interesting, and I touched a little bit on zero trust, but so one of the things that's interesting with zero trust and one of the challenges is you want to constantly evaluate whether somebody's trustworthy. So that's one of the big challenges. So I said you start off from no one. There's a point where if you do that too often, it can get in the way of the user's experience. And there's this bit of this balance between, it can be so secure, but if Todd and I and you were prompted for an RSA token, for instance, every 2 milliseconds, could be quite annoying after a while, and you wouldn't get much done. So, and where am I going with that? So I think the point here is that there's new technologies around working out whether you are trustworthy, but doing it in the background. So there's these theories of continuous evaluation or constant verification. Even things like you start to get in phones now, accelerometers, where I can walk in a certain way, right? And it knows that it's me. So when I go to authenticate through a phone, through Face ID or whatever it is, whatever your chosen poison is in terms of your platform, actually there could be some machine learning understanding, well, this kind of is Spencer, but it's not Spencer because Spencer doesn't walk like that. And I know the way that Spencer walks. So I think you're going to see more interesting ways on the security side, evolution in terms of things like biometric and some of the things that we can work out. And ultimately, you want that going on in the background and real time. So right now, a lot of our security is done in intervals. And to my point, if you kind of trust somebody for a certain time, it used to be you trusted somebody for 30 days. Pretty much everybody used to reset their AD password policies every 30 days, right? But problem, of course, is if somebody got into your system on the first day, there's 27 days or 29 left until you need to reset it. So bringing down that time to live, but the way you do that is you need kind of big data, you need machine learning to understand what's going on to try and work out how you keep things secure. So I think you're going to see a lot more advances in machine learning in security. I think you're going to see a lot more advances in, I sort of touched on this earlier, around things like virtual assistants. A lot of interesting work we're doing around how we can improve user experience there. And the other thing here is IT. You think about the role of IT. When I grew up and I got into IT, I was building stuff. I was very proud to build stuff. I think the new role of people is people coding and infrastructure as code and being a lot more, abstracting out all of that stuff underneath and kind of understanding what's going on and being able to make policy changes. You're definitely going to see the role of IT change, I think. And from our day, I don't know if you started off like that, but I certainly did in the support desk and worked my way up. So, 3 different things there. But security, I think there's a lot of definite things you're going to see soon that are going to help us and make us feel more secure as well.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think there's a huge role for AI in the security space and in so many other aspects we've touched on. Todd, what's your view of the future? What what are some of the trends that you're seeing that people need to be aware of and that you're excited about?
Yeah, so let me just start with kind of an idea. And right now we're working from home and COVID is still alive and well. The UK is on lockdown as an example. So the reason that we're working from home is going to start to drift away and change over the course of this year. I'll cross our fingers here around the vaccine and everything else, right? And so all of a sudden, by the end of this year, everybody's working from home, but the reason as to why they originally did is gone. So what I think we're going to see is we're going to see a very fast evolution of leveraging what's good about this, right? Right now, I think it's a combination of pleasure and pain, right? There's a lot of challenges around lack of social interaction and missing family and not being able to leave the house. Like there's a lot of impact. Those go away. And then it's about leveraging what's good. So in my role, I can meet with a customer in Europe in the morning, in the US in the afternoon, and in Asia at night. Right? I'm never going to go back to flying around the world trying to do that. I'll have some blend. And so as I think about the trends, if I think about the tips, it's about isolating on what really is useful and needed as it relates to this new way of working, and then continuing to blend that into that office and looking for the human interaction. That's what we're missing. I know I've said it multiple times, but the idea of collaboration and human interaction. So then as the technology comes forward, as video improves, as immersive experiences with AR, VR come, as the AI and ML capabilities that Spencer was talking about help work go faster, then we'll just blend that and integrate that in. So the big change in my mind that's coming is COVID drifting away and the reason to be at home reducing or being gone. So then let's just take the best of it and continue to do that. That's the way I see it. Bernard, I think there's some other things coming as well, but that's really where I'm focused and what I'm thinking about.
Very good, thank you. And anyone listening to us live here, you have the ability to add your comments into the stream. So if you want to let us know what you think about today's session, do that. If you want to ask questions, do that. If you want to share what you believe the future of work will look like and this hybrid and secure space will look like, then please do so too. There was one question here from Bastien saying, what about the CO2 impact of hybrid working? Which is an interesting question and something I think we very often forget. I think when it comes to the entire world of cloud computing, sometimes we forget that there is a data center somewhere that needs to be cool down, it needs to be run, it uses energy, Zoom calls need energy. So any views on that?
Yeah, sorry, Todd.
Spencer, all I was going to say was something that the three of us talked about, earlier this week, which was last year I flew 250,000 miles. And, those flights burn a tremendous amount of carbon I guess I should say I have a tremendous carbon impact. And so this year I may not fly at all for work. And I think that that's a positive change. And I will never go back to flying at that rate. So this work from home change is going to have a big impact for me. And then also the commute. I mean, I live in the Boston area. It's not unusual to have an hour and a half commute into the city. I know London's similar and back out and all of those cars and all of those changes. So I believe it's going to be positive, even if you factor in things like data centers, things like bandwidth, electricity use, et cetera. So Spencer, sorry, I didn't mean to talk over you.
It was a similar vein. What I was going to say is, I don't miss flying either, right? Which for some people love to fly. It depends on your perspective, but I definitely don't miss the early get-ups. My point was going to be to yours, well, that the carbon footprint's coming down, but the good news about data centers is actually there's alternative ways of powering them, right? So, which are renewable. And last time I checked, there wasn't an electricity-powered plane. Well, it kind of was, but I don't think it could take about 250 people up in the air. So I think that's a good thing, to Todd's point, right? I mean, we should. I've seen some stats the other day actually around, I think there's some places you could see from space that, given this time last year, you couldn't because of the pollution and et cetera, et cetera. There's got to be some benefit to this, right? But yeah, it's definitely a good one to bring up. Hopefully it's good for the environment. It's the one good thing that's come out of this.
Yeah, no, and I think that this is a point you made earlier, Todd, about that we now have to really think about why we're going to the office. And I think if we do this a bit more and just question why are we doing this, and do we really need to do this? I always say that I've done this so many times before COVID that I was invited to do a keynote presentation somewhere in San Francisco or somewhere
Sure.
on the other side of the world, and then I get on a plane for 12 hours, stay in a hotel, give my 15-minute, 20-minute talk, and then fly 12 hours back. And you think that it cannot be a good thing. And the more we can move this into a hybrid world, and I see lots of events working fantastically well. And
Yeah.
then if we find really good reasons for meeting up, then let's do it. But only if it really makes sense and is good for us as humans, and good for the planet as well.
Yeah, Bernard, I had a conversation with some friends the other day, and we were talking about the flip side of not traveling, which is when you travel, it'll be very meaningful, right? So if you do come to San Francisco for that speech, that's a compliment to that event. That's a compliment, it'll be very meaningful because there's other ways to deliver it now. And so it's this combination of, I'll travel less, but when I do, it's really going to mean something to wherever, the people that I'm going to see. So I like that, actually. I want that to be, the idea. When I go, I want to look forward to it. I want it to be powerful and meaningful when I get there.
I agree. And I think if we can get this right in the future, that will be a big step forward to really think. I obviously miss the nice dinners that you have with people, but does it really justify 24 hours in the air? There was another question here on VR and AR, something we've touched on. Any views on this and the role it would play in the future?
Yeah, so we're doing a lot here as well, and actually there's a great there's some stuff we did at VMworld out, our annual conference that was online last year, using VR for things like training. You think about surgeons, etc., and also an interesting use case around potential policing, where you've got some highly skilled individuals that can't scale, to Todd's point, don't really want to travel halfway around the world. And if you could maybe see what they're seeing and direct them to go and do something, and then somebody sitting in base can now look after 6 scenes of crimes or something. And so there's some great stuff there. Everyone thinks of VR for meetings, but I think you'll start to see an expansion, production line, training, even like we've got a great demo we show around how to build Dell servers, right, where you can kind of train the inputs there. And we've got some great examples of, productivity on production lines around making sure people put things in the right order, which obviously is good to make them better and quicker, but more safer as well, right? So you want to make sure that people are putting things in the right area. So definitely massive increases in that. We think VR, but AR, even AR as well, where you kind of maybe somebody at a roadside that's fixing a car, and cars change all the time in terms of specs and that. And, it's not like you can see it all virtual, but they can overlay schematics to make sure that they're turning the right bolt somewhere or filling up the right fluid. So there's a lot of use cases for AR and VR. Meetings is one of them, but I think there's a lot more potential there.
Todd, anything to add on that?
I would agree. I think there's a comment that Michael Dell made in a meeting last summer. He said, hey, look, COVID has accelerated, we're doing plans that were 2 and 3 years out in 2 or 3 quarters. And I think that same logic applies to VR and AR right now. It might have been a technology that was maybe farther out on the horizon, but these changes that we've experienced in this past year are accelerating it dramatically. It is a core technology that we'll see much, much higher use of over the next 12, 18, 24 months, and which is an acceleration potentially of a couple of years. So I think it's a great question, and absolutely it's going to be really important. It's just that immersive experience and making it feel more like you're there.
I agree.
Well, think about though there, Bernard, around it, so that AR and VR is great, but the glasses are only so powerful. So then you think about the networks, and that's where 5G comes in, right? So and other networks, because we're doing some work now where if you think you're an engineer that's designing something, you don't have a, I don't know, 256 gig RAM, 30,000 pound workstation sitting on your AR VR headset. You kind of want to leverage the power of that and some high power graphics. great use case for things like virtualization and Streamlit over 5G. So you get that real time there, power to do what you need to do, but you're leveraging the data center. So it's again, other use cases, but there's some exciting stuff there actually.
Yeah, very good. And both technologies, VR, AR, mixed reality, I'm super excited about them. I've actually just finished my latest book that will come out in May, which is all about extended reality and how it will transform our world. Very good. Thank you so much. This hour has just rushed by. Thank you so much. Anyone listening, let us know what you think. Before you go, Spencer, where can people find out more if they want to connect with you, learn more about some of the things you've talked about?
Yeah, so usual places. If you are interested in any of the things I've talked about from a VMware perspective, it's vmware.com, specifically digital workspace, if you go into the solution there. But me personally, at Spoinster, it's kind of in my bottom right corner, and I'm on LinkedIn as well, Spencer Pitt. So feel free to reach out to me and connect.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you. Todd?
Yeah, so similar to Spencer, at the corporate level, it's delltechnologies.com. As you go in there, you go into the digital or the workspace area, and you'll see stories of customers transforming, as well as our own internal stories, which are kind of interesting to hear. And you see things around network security, et cetera. In terms of me personally, Todd Lieb on LinkedIn. There's not a lot of Todd Liebs out there. In fact, I'm not aware of maybe just a couple globally, so should be easy to find. But Todd Lieb, Dell Technologies, love to connect. Happy to continue the conversation. So thanks, Bernard.
Very good. Let me just have a quick look. People saying great session. Thank you very much. Fantastic session.
Thanks,
great session. And Erica saying thank you. Productive in pajamas, which I think is a great way to end this session. So thank you very much, Todd. Thank you, Spencer. And I will hopefully talk to you soon.
Thanks, Bernard. Have a great day.
Stay safe, everyone. Thank you.